morning.
Congratulations, it's publication day!
It is, the most stressful day of the publishing industry.
The book's called Unstressable. They've both written it. They now need to read it. Oh, congratulations. As I said to you off the air, this might be the most useful book I've ever read, and this is what I do for a living.
That is such a big compliment.
Honestly, it's so good. It's so good. So what I love about it is it's not discursive. Basically, if you read this book and you go to any page in it and you import whatever it says on that page into your life, and there's paragraphs and there's stories and there's bullet points, and if you haven't got time you can just skim it one day and then go back to it later. If you input any of these things in this book into your life today, you will be less stressed. That's a fact.
That's amazing. Can you continue, please? We just want you to go on.
I know you're due on this morning. You can go now if you like. No, seriously, congratulations. Well done. It is. Let's just dive straight in. Your backstories are great. The way you met is great, but we don't have time for that. And you've got the Unstressable podcast anyway, haven't you? You've got your podcast as well, Mo, haven't you? Yeah. So people can go to your podcast. But this book is out today, and I want you all to buy it. So let's talk about, first of all, let's go to Mo, and let's talk about anxiety, and let's talk about panic. This is why this book is great. This is about 100 to 150 pages in. So anxiety is because of something, all right? And panic is because of something. And anxiety, and these all are massive ingredients in your NutriBullet of stress. So anxiety, and I didn't realize this till I read your book, anxiety is basically about our lack of ability, or our potential lack of ability, or our projected lack of ability, or the lack of ability storing we're telling ourselves to do with something. Panic is to do with time. When you distill it like that, it's so obvious. Thank you. Speak to that, please.
This is the whole point. Fear and all of its derivatives. Basically, a lot of anticipation of a threat or anticipation of a challenging situation when it's not really upon you. Remember, stress is supposed to be reacting to a tiger right in front of you, but you can look a week ahead or a month ahead or a year ahead and say, I am afraid of something. The challenge is when you're anxious and you react to it as you react to fear, you're doing the wrong thing, because fear is about a challenge that you need to address and minimize or escape, right? Anxiety is about I am aware of the challenge and I'm not able to deal with it. I don't believe. My perceived notion of my own abilities is that I can't deal with it. And so if you try to address it as if it's fear, it makes you more anxious, because the more you try to address it, the more you realize you're not able to deal with it. And so the answer is actually quite different. The answer is, when you feel anxious, focus on yourself. Tell yourself, how can I develop more skills to become able to deal with this? Similarly with panic. Panic is about time. The threat is imminent. Right? And so don't treat it like fear. Don't try to address the issue. Try to give yourself more time.
Yeah. So Michael Grade, who was one of my first mentors, who used to run all of show business, he said to me, if I can tell you one thing, if anybody says to you, I need an answer today, he said, because people say that to me in deal making all the time. And he said, I always say, if people say that to me, and they say it all the time, if you need an answer today, the answer is no, because I don't need to give you an answer today.
Absolutely.
Until he said straight away, well, that's why they have sales, because they introduce a time pressure on goods being this price for this long, Alice.
Yeah, I mean, it's true, though, because we're in this society where we think we're obsessed with being busy, and we're obsessed with pressure, and we think that pressure makes us more perform better, and it does on a small version. We call that eustress, short stress over a short amount of time. But when we have pressure long term, it actually makes us less able to deal with everything and less able to perform.
So Mo comes at all this from an engineering point of view, doesn't he? A binary point of view. And you meet him there's a golden bridge of you two meeting, which is why you get on so well.
Yeah.
And you come at from a more spiritual point of view as well. So can you tell us a bit about that, a bit about how you frame things, how you talk about feelings and the heart? Because we are feeling beings that have thoughts. We're not thinking beings that have feelings.
Totally. I love that you say that, because it's true. Like today we've been taught how to think rather than how to feel. And we're so obsessed with being in our heads instead of in our hearts. And so emotional stress, that chapter in the book, is such an important one for people to look at, because it's really about actually understanding that when you can access your feelings, you have a superpower. And the more we suppress our feelings, they don't disappear. We think, we'll suppress them, push them down, distract, numb them out, binge watch Netflix, overeat, go out, overwork. But a feeling just sits simmering underneath until you explode later on. And today emotions are a complicated but amazing language. The most recent research that we put in the book is 87 different emotions and human experiences humans are capable of, but the average person can only name 3.
Yeah.
Which is happy, angry, and sad, which is just wild if you think about it, because, how can we portray what we're feeling if we can't even explain it ourselves?
So we talk about going to the gym. You talk about the brain gym and the heart gym. Can you just give us some headlines there, please?
Yes, the brain gym Mo looked at, that was the GY and triple M's.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which I'll let you do, but it's, the heart gym was more about, it's looking at curiosity structure, things like, okay, if you are very logical, how do you get into your heart space originally? So I look at something called like which, where, why, and what. So actually sitting down and going, which feeling am I feeling? Where am I feeling it in my body? Why might I be feeling this? And then what can I actually do about it?
The reason I love your book is because that's the work. You're talking about the work there. And there's a lot of the work in the book. But that's such fun to go through those things. It's such fun. And just going through those things calms you down. I know that I've listened to a lot of podcasts with you two in preparation for this interview. And I know that a lot of people that meet you, Alice, describe you as the calmest person they've ever met in their lives. And also the kindest. Tell us about kindness.
Oh, that's very kind. But no, kindness with stress reduction is super, super huge. And we really undervalue that. Because, everyone knows the feeling, not only actually in the outside world, but if you're kind internally to yourself, that inner voice, you come back at the end of the day feeling pretty happy. The same way if you're berating yourself and being negative, you'll come back feeling stressed and depleted. And kindness is an act of kindness, random act of kindness, and shown to reduce stress, reduce anxiety, increase immunity. So, kindness is it's so needed today. It's so undervalued, I think.
Right, tell us about the brain gym.
Homework for everyone listening. One act of kindness today. Yeah. One act of kindness today, because it's not just for the other person, it's for you as well.
Totally, 100%.
Yeah, you get that oxytocin rush into you.
Yeah, we do loads
needed.
of stuff. We raise loads of money for charity. We have done for years and years and years. And I don't talk about it like that, but I always say this about it. It's the most selfish thing I've done because it makes me feel amazing.
Absolutely. The mind gym, on the other hand, is using neuroplasticity to make your mind fit so that the next stressful situation that comes upon you, you've exercised so you can carry that load. And we call it the gym, GYMMMMM, but it's basically practices that you can do every day, at least once a week, like gratitude, like yielding to life when life forces your hand and you're stuck in the tube and you're going to be a little late. So can you actually let life take over and say, okay, it's not going to be the end of the world? Can you meditate? Can you be mindful? Can you be a little bit more with Mother Nature? Very simple techniques.
Yeah.
But when you do them over and over and over 3 days, then 7 days, then 21 days, you'll be a master at them. They'll become just part of your life.
I love it.
Day.
And I know people have heard similar before, but honestly, I know this is similar framing, but read the book because it's different. Beyond the frame, it's different. For example, a no uttered from the deepest conviction is better than a yes merely uttered to please. Never heard it put like that before. That's awesome. Who wrote that?
I think that's Gandhi.
Was it? Well, via you. But again, there you are. I think you came up with it, but the way you just sort of give it to Gandhi, so generous, so generous. You talk about tapping, tap your way to calm. Another solution, literally on tap. You're big into tapping. I know you're both big into meditation. As I was listening to another podcast you were both on, it made me realise, you said something about meditation. Jerry Seinfeld talks about meditation. He says, I sit there and I say, come on, I'm open for business. Bring on the demons. And it's so true. So last night, I'm reading your book in the garden, right? The sun is setting. Nice. I'm very fortunate to live by the River Thames. The sun is setting over the river. I'm reading your book. I think, okay. And I always meditate every night for 20 minutes. So I put the book down. And I start meditating, and there they come again. All the noise. And people who meditate they say, I can't do it, I can't calm my mind. It's not about calming your mind.
Absolutely not.
It's like, I said it before, it's like going to the gym. You go to the gym, you pile on the weights. It's not easy in the gym to pick up those weights, but 2 days later when you're tidying in your garage, suddenly you can pick up the boxes. Meditation doesn't make you feel calm in the moment of meditation. It makes you feel calm when you need it. When you used to be calling the fire brigade, suddenly you don't need to anymore. And that's when, and it first happened to me about 2 years ago. I was in this really stressful situation in the day and I wasn't getting stressed out. I thought, oh, this is meditation is now. This is when it comes to joy. You talk about meditation a lot, Alice.
Yeah, I mean, I love meditation. And I love that you say that because people really think you have to be like Yoda on top of a mountain without a single thought, and that's meditation.
Chaotic. My meditation is chaotic.
100%. And it's about like, I had a teacher who said to me, they said, you know, your mind is like a Rottweiler. You have to learn to walk it or it will walk you. And so if you are actually just watching what thoughts are coming in, you learn something about yourself. So then you can change it in the future. And actually meditation is shown to create space. It weakens the me center in our brain, which is that reaction mode. So we actually have that moment, like you say, where you don't need to call the fire brigade and scream.
Yeah, and they used to be on direct dial, didn't they, before, emotionally, that's for sure. Our thoughts are a cocktail of the events that trigger them mixed with our assumptions, emotions, previous experiences, traumas, a load of fiction that we see in movies, a pile of negativity that we see in the news, and a splash of our biggest concerns, worries and fears. We can firewall ourselves to stress, which is not living in denial, is it? It's not going off to our sort of own virtual island of denial. It's different. Because why would you want to infect yourselves with things that are bad for you?
Yeah, it's like walking into the aisles of a supermarket, surrounded by foods that will make you allergic or intolerant, and manufactured or processed sugars that will inflame your body, and choosing not to have those because they are not good for you. There are so many events in your life that you just sort of let happen because none of them on its own would break you. Like, that crazy alarm that jolts you out of bed in the morning. You can actually stop and
change your alarm.
to change your alarm.
I did it 3 years ago, and you just wake up.
It's so different.
And now I have birds tweeting because and the crickets.
That's it. Yeah.
That's how I want to wake up.
Absolutely.
100%. I have a meditation song that gets louder. It's just nice.
Do you?
Yeah.
Like a wave.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what's even better? Sleep 8.5 hours earlier than you go to bed earlier.
Yeah.
And then you'll wake up without the need for the alarm.
All right. Your mind speaks constantly, but it rarely tells you the truth. This book is great, page 121. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Don't listen to the voice in your head. Speak to yourself because the voice in your head isn't you.
Correct.
It's your chimp. And that's sort of what you're saying there.
I call my brain Becky. So it's totally a third party, right? And, Becky was the most annoying girl in school.
Oh,
and you have to think about that. Yeah. I mean, sorry to all Beckys. That Becky was annoying.
Yeah. When life twists your arm, acceptance, which really doesn't count as doing anything at all, is the only thing you can do on the path to recovery. That's great.
Yes. So you see, challenges are not there to annoy you. Challenges are there for you to consider, reflect, and find out how you're going to deal with them.
Yeah. Here on page 132, you have a diagram, a graphic, the endless cycle of stressful thoughts. And I read it, and I've written, next to it in my Sharpie. I've also retitled it The Dantes Inferno of Stress Hell. Who came up with this? Talk about this if you don't mind.
This is a description of how stress keeps basically taking you through cycles of, you just think of something and then you reflect on it and you start to go like, what if I didn't do that? Should I have done it differently? And then suddenly you shift to the future and you go like, oh, I should do this, but what if it messes up? And then you keep that cycle infinitely.
It's crazy, man.
And you're just stuck
in that. It's a doom loop, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's that incessant, unuseful, distracting, noisy, sound in your head.
What I like about this book is it's scientific, but it's on the right side of science for most of us. You know what I mean? It makes us. It's almost like a kid's book, if you like. Do you know what I mean?
Don't say that.
Because the stories are. I like the story of science. I don't really want to get into the binary pluses and minuses of science, but there is an equation, a formula, isn't there?
There is, but it's also highly simplified. I mean, if you compare stress in humans to physics, when you stress an object, if you try to break a pencil, for example, it's not just about the force you apply to the pencil, it's also about the square area, the resources the pencil has to resist that force. And in humans, it's the same. It's the challenges that you face divided by the skills, abilities, resources that you have to deal with.
And time again as well.
And you have to understand, when you were 20, things that freaked you out makes you laugh when you're 50, right? That's because you've increased the square area. It's not because the challenge is easier.
And then you get to 80 and everything makes you laugh.
Exactly. I'm laughing at
That's
everything
why
now.
Trump is so effective. He just doesn't take anything very seriously, does he? Because he's
I
80.
think there are other reasons, but
No, I know. Limit the stresses you allow into your life. Remove them regardless of how insignificant they may seem. Because, if you sort of go, don't worry about that. Oh, it's nothing. If you say that too many times, then it's something.
Yeah, totally. That's like limit was a big part of our model. Like limit, learn, and listen as our overall model.
You 3 L's.
3 L's.
Yeah.
And
Honestly, I love this book. Go on, Karen. Sorry.
No, limits. So it's actually about being able to limit the needless stress in our lives, like you just said, because we let in so much unnecessary micro stress that actually increases stress in our system without us realizing, just because we're in the modern world. And so when you can change your morning alarm to something soothing, when you can actually not watch sort of 17 news headlines over and over every day on the same thing, when you can actually just put your phone in a sort of what I call a phone cemetery for an hour in a drawer in the evening and not touch it, that limits so much stress in your system.
People keep saying that and people are sick of hearing it, but you're only sick of hearing it because you probably don't want to do it. And you say, I'm sick of hearing that, well, because you don't want to do it, that's why.
It really is a very simple homework. Like today, just spend half an hour listing down all the things that stressed you and scratch out the ones you can scratch out, right? It's really not that complicated.
So simple. I love this rule. I had to read this like 3 or 4 times before. I thought, what does that mean? A lot of what's causing you stress is preventable if you choose to reject its presence in your life. And then on from that, you talk about the fact that if something is stressful, it's only useless it's only useful up until the point you can no longer do anything about it. And after that, it starts to attack your body.
Correct.
And this is so important, isn't it? Tell us about that.
Well, I can tell you the experience of it because Alice wrote the physically stressed chapter and I edited it. And the minute I started to read that chapter, I texted Alice and I said, oh my God, every one of those symptoms is in me, right? I travel all the time. I'm constantly on the run and so on and so forth. What should I do? And she gave me the list of things, about your diet, about relaxation, about how you really listen to your body. Yeah. And it flipped everything upside down. I am a younger person today than the day I read that chapter. It's incredible.
I've seen a lot of your videos. You look younger today.
Oh, man, I really like this.
Right, tell us about blokes and physical stress, because it's different, isn't it, Al?
Well, it's interesting because I think that, a lot of the time, so we store stress in the body.
Yeah. And
a lot of the time because if you said, men kind of tend to emotionally suppress their emotions more than women as a sort of generalization, I know, but that is the sort of society we've been trained to live in. And so that can be stored in the body as a sort of actual emotional can turn physical symptoms. And so I have weird experiences with clients in an amazing way that I've had like so many aches and pains and it's like, stressed executive and they're like, I've been to a physio for 3 months and I'm like, it's not physical. And then you do an emotional, session, emotional release and they're like, oh, it's all gone.
Yeah, it's so true.
It's so interesting.
But it's like it's for a lot of people, your body's like your stress vault, isn't it? So your brain comes up with the world gives you a signal, or gives you a reason or an excuse to get stressed again, because some people sort of live on their stress. And then you can't deal with it, so you have to compartmentalize it, and then you put it in your body, and then you're holding it, and it's like getting a storage unit, isn't it? Yeah. We all know storage companies, you put something in storage, you never see it again, just keep paying for the storage. It's the same thing, but you're paying for it with your life.
Yeah.
100%.
And we know that temporary stress is good for you, and chronic stress literally kills you.
Over time, it does. I mean, if you look at the original design of the stress machinery, this biology is all about running away from a tiger, right? You don't run away from a tiger for 6 months or 3 months or the current levels of chronic stress that we have in our lives today. And so when you're reconfiguring your body to run away from a tiger, you're literally becoming superhuman. That's amazing for your focus and concentration and your, the energy going to your muscles and so on. But it deprives your kidneys, it deprives your liver, it deprives your digestive system from the resources they need to function properly. Do that for a while and your body literally wears down. It's almost like a turbocharger in a car driving at 9,000 RPM. Right?
You talk about this a lot.
It does. It takes you it gives you amazing results for 2 minutes. But if you do that for 3 weeks, the engine will melt down. That's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, and you got this 90-second rule as well.
Yeah, the 90-second rule is really the big realization here. I learned that from Gilberti Taylor, a wonderful dear friend who's a very renowned neuroscientist, that your cortisol in your blood, the reason why you're stressed, will only last 90 seconds. And then you sort of have to renew the lease. You really have to look at the situation with your rational brain and go like, yeah, my boss still annoying. I'm going to stress myself again, right? And the truth is, the original machinery was supposed to be reacting to an actual physical threat in your life. Your boss is still annoying, is not going to kill you, right? It's not a tiger, really, but we maximize the threat there, and we just react to it over and over and over. And it is not a secret. 70 to 90%, depending on the country, of all doctors' visits are, like non-emergency doctor visits, are related to stress-related illnesses, right? Yeah. It's a pandemic that we have to really react to.
We really do, and there's something we can do about it today ourselves. Stress-Free Living, Unstressable by Mo Gawdat, the best-selling author of Solve for Happy and Alice Law. We're going to carry on talking. We've got another few minutes left. We could talk about the you don't know whether it's a tiger or your friend booing you. But it's all the same flavour, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big myth today with stress that we don't understand is our own system, right? So it's like you say, if your friend, it doesn't even have to be a boo. It can, like most say, be your annoying boss sending you a stressful email. Yeah. Your stressor system today still responds the same way it would as a tiger coming out of the bushes.
And it figures it out later.
Yeah.
That's the thing,
it's kind of like, it's on basically automatic pilot looking for threats. Our amygdala, and it's like, woo, okay, stress. But today it hasn't caught up with the modern world that we live in. It just still thinks that everything we're stressing about is life threats in its system, which obviously isn't the case, luckily for us.
Unless you train it, right? Yeah. Which I think is really the big message of Unstressable. We're putting a bold mission of 1 million people out of stress every year. And the idea there is that it's so doable. The reason why we say 1 million people is because it's so doable. Yeah. You just have to make a choice first, right? There is a level of awareness first. We ask people to become aware that they're actually stressed. Yeah. Then there is a bit of skills, which are littering the book all over it. And then we say, commit to the idea that I will do what it takes to reduce my stress a tiny bit today, right? And then it works from there, Chris. It's incredibly doable.
No, it's great, man. Yeah. So cool. So right towards the end here, we have the 7 Siren Superpowers, Rituals and Rules of the Unstressable. I wrote those words.
I was like, this is well written. I didn't say that.
Can always be better. Number 1, the Unstressable, keep an inventory and reduce. This is common traits of the members of the tribe of the Unstressable. The Unstressable run life the way a CEO would, and it's all in this book. The Unstressable live from the heart. The Unstressable keep a healthy lifestyle. The Unstressable set boundaries. The Unstressable relate to more than this world. We've got a few minutes left. What can you give our listeners now to help them today? First of all, Alice.
I think, first of all, it's an understanding that how your stress affects you also affects everyone around you. And that's not meant to be like, you should feel scared about that. It's wonderful. Individual responsibility and the effect that stress has not on individuals, but also on the family, on your community. Yeah. If everyone took personal responsibility for feeling calmer, the effect that has in their own little world is huge. Yeah. And so, you don't also have to have an hour and a half every day to do this. 5 minutes a day makes a huge difference to tell your system to calm down. And if you can put 5 minutes every day, which we all have 5 minutes, that makes a big difference. And then if you can build that up to doing half an hour a day, then you'll see such huge changes in your life.
Totally. The very fact that you have the time and space to stress about a thought or an emotion inside of you is in itself evidence that there is no nearby physical danger outside of you at this very moment. Because if there really was, you wouldn't have the time and the space to stress about it. I love that. It's so obvious. There's loads of things in this book, like great stand-up routines. You go, yeah, I thought that. No, you didn't. They just thought it and you're just sort of claiming it as your own. There's lots of that going on in here.
I would probably say that the more important two that we sort of call the slogans of the book are that living stressed is not living. That really, really, we have learned to accept stress as the tax we pay to navigate the modern world. You don't need to. And I think the other one, you understand from the stress equation, is that it's not the events of your life that stress you. It's the way you deal with them that does.
Well, there's PTSD, isn't it, as we know? Yeah. But you talk about. I've rephrased it. So PTSD is post-traumatic
stress disorder.
But you can have
traumatic
growth syndrome.
Yeah.
So you can have PTGD, if you like. And that's taking a view, isn't it? We talk about it in Buddhism. Thich Nhat Hanh talks about it all the time, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right diligence, right mindset, right focus. And that's the opposite of your Dante's stress hell wheel, isn't it?
It really is. And but by the way, it is really the distilled wisdom of ages.
Yeah.
You look at the Stoics or the Buddhists or, the Sufis and so on, and it really is all about looking at life for what it actually is. And in, Alice and I are extreme opposites in our approach to everything. I look at life as a video game, right? And believe it or not, gamers don't stress when the enemies attack. Gamers have fun.
Yeah, give us a bit of Byron Katy before you go. She's great, isn't she?
She's amazing.
Give us the Byron Katy 3-pronged playbook.
I don't know if I'd do her justice in that, but I mean, if we're talking about feelings again, I think it's just that.
Is it real?
I mean, it's the fact thing. Is it real?
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, we're in our heads making up things about how we feel and stressing our feelings even more. But that's why I always go back to that sort of curiosity structure of actually understanding why that feeling is happening to you and what you can do about it.
Yeah, we got a minute left. Fastos, over to you, my friend.
What I loved were the 8 bodily pleas.
Yes.
Yeah, we do love an 8 bodily plead. I mean, they seem really obvious.
They do. But if you just remember,
exactly. So
because one of them is move, right? And you say, okay, movement helps. And then there's another little paragraph, and you go, why aren't you moving yet? Stop reading this flipping book and move.
Exactly. And it's also like, I think we put in there, it's like understanding as well that when you're hypervigilant and overly stressed, so when you'll know you're in hypervigilance because you've been in chronic stress for a long time, you'll hear a leaf rustle when you walk past something and you'll jump and your body's in that over hypervigilant state. You want to then do a different kind of movement. So you want to do restorative movement, low inflammatory, walking, Pilates, make sure your body's being brought down out of that inflammatory zone. And then if you're not in that state, then movement's an amazing way, exercise, cardio, all those things to actually burn off stress hormones.
You two are amazing. Just a few more quotes before we go. From the book, you no longer need to obey. You don't even have to listen. I wrote there, what? So
That's
right.
about the voice in your head,
so
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Most of life is okay. And I added there, almost all of the time. Most of life is okay,
Correct.
almost all of the time. When things happen, they happen very quickly. Very few things happen, but it's our story before they're happening and after they're happening. When something happens, it just happens like in a minute or 10 seconds. And that's the thing, isn't it? And we give it... It's like a trailer and we create the movie or the mini-series to go with it when it's not required. The most important conversation you will ever have is the one you actually have with yourself. Mic drop! Right, we got to go. Anything you want to say before we say goodbye?
We love you very much.
We love you. You're the best, man.
That was so nice. Thank you.
Oh, this is so good. It's so cool. I'm so glad you got together.
Yeah, absolutely. I am so glad we got
I know,
together. Yeah.
it's a completely random,
Yeah, but
universal
chalk and cheese
synchronicity.
for
Exactly.
certain aspects.
100%.
With tremendous respect and really yin and yang of the stress.
Okay. Unstressable.com is also a club you can join. There are various incentives. You can try things for free for a month. If you don't like it, doesn't matter because you learned something, blah, blah, blah. It's just all good. It's all good. How did you meet? How did you get together?
I listened to him when it was lockdown. We were on Google, like a Google Hangout, both talking. He was obviously the keynote speaker. I was in a side room just sort of doing something. And I heard him speak and I was like, oh, he'd be great on my podcast. So I read his book. And then at the time, he wasn't as well known and famous as he is now. So I DM'd him and asked him on my podcast. And he very kindly sent me a voice note back and said he would.
Yeah.
And then I went on his and then, we became very good friends.
Literally a marriage made in heaven for the benefit of the rest of us. But there's an open invite. We're always welcome, aren't we, apparently? It's great. Practical Guide to Stress-Free Living, Unstressable, starring Mo Gawdat. I'm going to say, I know written by, but starring Mo Gawdat and Alice Law. The best thing of self-therapy. Well done, guys.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you.
If you're going to buy one book this year, this might be it. Definitely top 5, without question.
Virgin Radio.